he talked about, he said yes to a cruise ship. He needed 14 UV puppet shows at cruise ships. And they said, have you got that? And he said, oh, yes. And he didn't. But he went, well, I've now got 3 months to find 14 UV puppet shows that I can put into write the show, make the show. And he did. That's the thing. If you say yes to the thing, you still have to be able to do it. You can't just say yes and then not be able to do the thing. It's certainly something which I still keep in my mind as much as physically possible, to say yes to things. And it's taken me all over the world saying yes. It's important.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Desert Island Tricks. So today's guest is quite well known in our industry for creating kids tricks and kids performance pieces, which are really, really cool. I actually saw this gentleman in London in a show. He was doing a variety show, and I think this is going to be a bit of a different list. Of course, I'm not preempting anything because I could be absolutely wrong in every single way. But today's guest is the wonderful Chris Frost. How are you, Chris?
I'm very well, thank you. That's lovely. What show did you see me in?
It was. I think it was West End Magic?
There's a very funny photograph of me in a bright pink suit stood next to Guy Hollingworth in his white tie. And it's like the two different spectrums of magic.
So you primarily are a children's performer?
Yeah, children and family entertainment, yeah. So I would say I'm not a children's entertainer. I would say that I'm a parent entertainer, and the children are along for the ride. I don't like the idea of when a lot of people say they're family entertainers, they say, I do a kid show with loads of jokes for the adults, loads of adult jokes. And I go, well, that's not really appropriate. They shouldn't be in there, those jokes. I'd say it's more sort of Saturday night light entertainment-y kind of that sort of feel than kids TV, but the kids love that Saturday night light entertainment stuff. So that's where I sort of place myself in the bracket. It's very difficult to describe that to somebody booking, so it's easier to say kids entertainer.
So almost like old school variety.
Variety, yeah, proper old school variety. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we were talking earlier, you said that you found it a little bit difficult putting your list together. Have you gone for primarily those sort of family performance pieces or kids performance pieces, or have you found yourself dipping in and out of more close-up and contemporary sort of magic as well?
There's a bit of a mix. It's an interesting list. Everything that's on it I perform, apart from one thing. The hardest thing for me was later in the list, the curveballs. The book was tricky. Getting one book was really, really hard. The tricks themselves, there was always going to be the first one on my list was always boom there. I don't think I do anything without it, whether it be close up, whether it be cabaret, whether it be a kids party. It is always there. The sort of incarnation of what that is looks different quite often, but it doesn't leave my side as a magician. I'd feel quite naked without it.
So you mentioned that that's your first position. Does this mean that you have listed them in terms of your popularity? So number one is the one that you would most not be able to live without.
Number one is definitely. The rest of the list is sort of interchangeable. I would say that they are not, it's not in any particular order, though it is in a sort of order. It's sort of, it's in an order that felt right to me, but it's not in a case of, it's not in an order of a show or anything like that. And it's not in an order of, see, if I was to take out number 3, then I'd still be able to do a show. If I was to take out number 4, then I could still do a show. And 3 isn't more important than 4. It depends on who I'm performing for. I'm the sort of person that when I go to a gig, I ask lots of questions from bookers and say how many people are going to be there and what age groups are there and what we're looking at. If you're doing a 1-year-old birthday party, which is in some cultures is a really big thing, a lot of the children can't really understand what you're doing. You're not really there for the kids, you're there for the adults, though it's a family entertainment show. So I would take out X, Y, and Z and replace it with X, Y, and Z. Sometimes, if I'm not too sure what the gig is, I just turn up with so much stuff and then I can pick and choose. And even when I do holiday parks, sometimes I get there and look at the audience and go, okay, I'm going to move this show about a bit and check this out and put that in and stuff. It's get a different feel from different audiences. And I suppose the list is, if I could only have 8 items, these are the 8 items that I would have to entertain for everybody as a broad spectrum and be able to take things out and replace things and stuff like that.
So if you are listening to this for the first time, the idea is we're about to maroon Chris on his own magical island. When he's there, he's allowed to take 8 tricks, 1 book, and 1 non-magic item that he uses for magic. Particulars like who's there, what's there, animals, all that good stuff, we do not mind. This is built in Chris's own imagination. This is essentially the list of tricks that Chris could not live without. With that being said, let's get into this rather whimsical island, I'm guessing, with position number 1. So what did you put in spot number 1, Chris?
So in spot number 1, it's a classic. It's been on this podcast lots. It's sponge balls. But I didn't write sponge balls. I wrote sponge unicorns. I got, do you know Mila? She did work for Prop Dog and she creates things out of sponge. And so basically you can go to her and say, I would like X, Y, or Z. And I've got sponge unicorns. I've got Alan Wong's eyeballs, sponge eyeballs, which I'm going to be using for the whole of February and March, the eyeballs, because of the gig that I'm doing. I'm a wizard and having a jar of eyeballs is much more fun than having some sponge balls. And I have written down 5 sponge balls. I do a 4 sponge ball trick, but it takes 5 sponge balls to do it, which is bizarre because when you first get sponge balls, they come in a box of 4, and there should be a 5th one. I've always done it with 5. There's always had to be a 5th one, even though that ball never gets seen. For me, it's it's got a bit of an emotional side to it as well. It's the first trick that I ever bought, and I was about 12 years old and in Weston-super-Mare for my birthday. And we went in, we were on the pier and it was me, my mum, my dad, my brother. And my mum realised that she hadn't bought any birthday candles for the cake. So we had to go into Weston-super-Mare to get birthday candles. I didn't know what was going on particularly. So we went into Weston-super-Mare and there's a little bricks and mortar shop in Weston-super-Mare called, what was it? Anyhow, there's a little bricks and mortar joke shop. And I sort of saw it. And it wasn't, it didn't say magic or anything on it. And we went in, me and Dad went in there because Mum was looking for candles. And there was the glass cabinet, the glass cabinet in the joke shop with the magic tricks in it. And this guy came out and he showed me a few bits and pieces. And he showed me 3 sponge balls and a squeaker, 2 squeakers technically, because one doesn't work. And I bought these sponge balls. So at 12 years old, I bought sponge balls, and it was, I think, the first thing that made me really go, this is something that I want to do. This is something that is important to me. I just became a bit obsessed with chopping sponge balls in half. Was the thing that I became a bit obsessed with, taking one away, putting it in my pocket and then chopping it in half again, like everlasting sponge balls in my hand, which I don't do now. But and then I was at a gig in probably 2019. I have these unicorns that Mila had made me. And a magician said to me, he said, I hate sponge balls. He said, but seeing it as a different thing makes it relatable. And of course, unicorns are magical. That's exactly why they would be doing the things. So as soon as you change it from being a red clown's nose to being something that could exist or in a reality, they're quite odd things, sponge balls are. And that's why magicians don't like them. Why would I have them? Well, why would a magician have a unicorn? But it seems more relatable. And the eyeballs as well. They're just things that people can go, oh, I understand what that is. So I think that's really, really important. And and I went to this thing in Western Supermare. I got these 4 sponge balls, and then on the way back, we went into Waterstones. Don't know why, I was a bit obsessed with books, and because I decided now that I love magic, I picked up my first ever magic book, which was a hardback cover of Mark Wilson's Complete Course in Magic from Waterstones at the age of 12. And these two things, sort of, I've still got it. It's the Mark Wilson books in my bookcase over there from when I was 12. It's lovely.
So when we speak about sponge balls, obviously there's a very famous stand-up performance from Wayne Dobson that he did on the Royal Variety Performance. So when you perform the sponge balls, are you doing it as a stand-up piece or primarily a close-up piece?
So this is the thing. I do it at close up. I do it at the table. For any age group at all, I find that it's one of those things that just makes everybody will just want you to do it again. Do it again. Do it again. It is brilliant. I also do it with 2 kids on stage. I think Craig Petty does a fantastic coin routine where he does coins across with 2 kids on stage, and you can't really see, if you're at the back of the audience, you can't really see, but you can see the kids' faces. And they go, oh, wow, their eyes literally light up, and you go, wow, that's something magical, that is. So I do sponge balls with 2 kids on stage at a kids' party. I'll do it with the birthday child, and I'll do it at close-up as well. Literally, it's that one trick that I take everywhere with me. It's I don't have an EDC as such. I do have something on my keys, but I don't have this like massive tricks that I take everywhere. But sponge balls, there was a point where I wouldn't leave the house without sponge balls because people would say, "Can you show us a thing?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, sure. Here you go." Now not so much, but it's literally everything.
Yeah, it's a great opening gambit. In at number 1, we have unicorns. Let's see where we're at number 2. What do we have in the second spot?
So the second spot is the opener of my family shows and my kids' parties. I don't do it close up. It's the pom-pom stick. It's just such a great magic trick. It's so fooling. And my sort of intro to it. So for what the pom-pom stick is, because I've had people say I've never seen that before, that are magicians. It's a stick with 4 pom-poms attached to it, a yellow, a black, a red, and a green. And one of them is dangling low, and all of the pom-poms are attached to the other pom-poms. So when you pull the yellow one up, the red one goes up. When you pull the green one down, the yellow one comes up. When you pull the black one up, the red one goes up. But they're all attached in an impossible way. And then what I say is, of course, I can't show you what's inside because that would give away the secret unless you ask really nicely, do you want to see what's inside? They say yes. And then I unscrew it. It's not screwed together, but it looks like I unscrew it and show them the inside. There's nothing in there, which means it's completely impossible for them to be attached. And then I show them attached again. It's a wonderful, wonderful magic trick. It's something which it looks so bizarre. And I see on so many forums and threads, people going, well, it's just not real world. You can't do this. Why would anybody have it? This is something which doesn't exist. It's so odd. Yet to a room full of magicians, there used to be a night in London called Now That's Magic. And I did it at that. And I had magicians coming and going, so how does it work? And my answer is, I don't really know, which is lovely. I can perform it. And I have more recently got really into the mechanics of it because I've started making my own, which is harder than you'd expect it to be. But making your own of something, which is something you love very much, you get through all of the mechanics of everything and go, now I'm so close to it. I can, because there's points where if things twist in it, then bits get stuck, and without giving into methods, then you can end up with a ball not going up when it should do, and all this kind of thing like that. And it can be quite tricky to perform. Like you have to notice that live on stage, and untangle it without anybody seeing that you're doing anything, which is quite a fun. I quite like that. Dread when I'm performing. I like the idea of things could go wrong. So yeah, the pom pom stick. It's a fabulous piece of theatre. Mine's 2.5 minutes long. I do it to a piece of music. I do it to a really dramatic piece of music, and it starts slow and gets faster and faster and faster and faster, and it finishes just on with me holding the stick in the air. It's like a proper applause cue for the audience, which is lovely as well.
I know that Ali Bongo was really well known for his pom pom stick. So, where did you learn your routine? Is it something that you've put together, or is it something that you've taken little pieces from other people's performances?
So I saw Ali Bongo's. You can see Ali Bongo doing it in French, I think, best on YouTube, which is bizarre because why would it be best in French? But there's a YouTube clip of him doing it in French, and I mean, I think the beauty of him doing it in a completely different language as well is you go, oh, that's just phenomenal. So I watched that. I watched a lot of performance. So I also I'll probably say this a fair amount of times. I have a real dislike for magic a lot of the time. I watch performers sometimes doing things and I go, this is so good, but it gets lost in the performance sometimes. And children's entertainers, especially, I sometimes watch them. I've got 2 children of my own. I go to kids' parties and I can watch a kids' entertainer and go, oh gosh, this is hard work. It's hard to watch. The kids are having a great time, but the parents are all gone. And so with the pom pom stick, I wanted it to be sort of old school musical variety, with the getting faster and faster and faster. The music that I do it to is classical music, and it just gets faster and faster. I wanted it almost to be like the sailor's hornpipe in Last Night of the Proms. So at the end, you've got that sort of everybody is involved, and I mean, there's not a lot you can say about it. It's one of those things that I dislike in magic, is where you tell people what you're doing. I'm now pulling the yellow one up and the green one's going up with it. This one's attached to this one, this one's attached to that one. There's not a lot else you can really say about a pom-pom stick unless you start attaching different things to the strings, and talking about if I pull this one, you could make it philosophical or all sorts of things. But I don't. It is literally me saying green, yellow, red, and black over and over again, very, very fast. But it's something which really works. And so Ali Bongo's routine is something I've got Ali Bongo written down on my list here. In French is wonderful. But also watching people doing things badly can be really nice as well, because you can go, that shouldn't be like that. And you can go, but I'd say the main inspiration is Ali Bongo and Last Night of the Proms, the Sailor's Hornpipe.
Great. Well, we've gone from unicorns to pom-poms. Where are we going to in number 3?
So number 3 is something that I made myself. I was umming and erring about doing this because I was like, oh, do I put my own stuff in? I'm very, very close to this, and it is the Wizard of Oz book test. And it's something which I'm really proud of. It's the Wizard of Oz. But I'm not a big fan of book tests. I find them to be difficult at times. Often you're flipping through, standing next to the person and asking them to look at the page. And I wanted to do a book test. I wanted to do some mentalism, and I wanted it to be the Wizard of Oz. But I didn't want to be stood next to anybody. So on stage, I like the idea of throwing a book into the audience and being nowhere near it, or not even having to be in the same room as somebody to be able to perform it. So I made this Wizard of Oz book test. It reads from front to back as an ungimmicked book. And then you can predict the word that they're thinking of. But I feel like we have a responsibility to our audience as well. And I've only felt this sort of probably since 2020. When I perform, especially when I perform at holiday parks or to large audiences, and even small audiences, but to big audiences, you're standing on stage and you've got a lot of power on that stage. You are somebody who can create memories, which is what our job is. I believe that. You can make people laugh. You can make people cry. You can potentially change people's lives, I think. And The Wizard of Oz, I believe, is a really important story, because everybody thinks that they haven't got this really important thing that they need. And it's become part of my act where I talk at the end about looking in the mirror and finding yourself ugly, and you need to find sort of that beauty that is there, and like being bullied at school and stuff like that is something which has become quite close to me. And I go, do you know what? Everything that you're looking for, you've already got. And the Wizard of Oz is a wonderful. That's the moral of the story. It's not sort of hammer over the head moral of the story, but the wizard turns around to him and goes, "You had these things all along. Otherwise, you'd never been able to do the things you've done." And and I think that responsibility in being able to turn around to an audience and maybe get them to leave thinking in a more positive way is something which is great. I love the idea of having a positive, like, spin on somebody's life and being able to do something awesome for somebody, even if it's just one person in an audience. If you do it enough time, that's 100 people. If you do it more, that's 1,000. And you could be changing people's lives doing it. And it sounds really cheesy and corny, but you never know. So that's number 3. Yeah.
Yeah, and The Wizard of Oz is one of those books which I think is probably universally known at this point. Certainly, at the time of recording, we've just had the release of Wicked, which just seems to have done incredible numbers worldwide. So it's great that you've chose that book to sort of appeal to as many people as you can.
Yeah, I mean, the Wizard. Originally, when I started writing the book test, I got the text of Alice in Wonderland, and I really struggled with the words that I wanted to, the words being in the right places for me to be able to predict them. Not predict them because I don't predict them, to read the minds of the people that are there. The Wizard of Oz, it was in 2020 that I wrote it, and I don't think I could have done this book test in any other year, because the amount of time that it took to make the book, I spent. You know, when people say, "Oh, I've spent 8 years making this trick," I spent 8 years in 2020 making that trick. It was the hours that went into it were just ridiculous, and it's so good. People can't work it out. There's the way it's performed is, I start with that at the beginning. I throw it out to the audience. I say, "Take a look at the book and make sure it's real." And then at the end of the show is when I go back to the book and I go, "Oh, and there was that book, wasn't there? We need to talk about the book," and go back to it. And if I do a show with an interval, then they get the book in the first half, and at the end of the second half towards the end of the second half is where we open the book up and do the thing. But I already know what word they've got by that point. I know the word a few seconds in before they've got the book. I know what word they're going to look at, and the words don't repeat or anything like this. There was certain like things that I wanted to. I also don't know any book tests, so I don't know if I know nothing about book tests. I've read nothing about book tests, and when I went into it, I was like, "I'm going to make this thing." I made up my own method, and it works. It's really nice, and people go, "Huh?" But other than that, you've got this wonderful responsibility where you make people go, "Wow, that's incredible," and maybe I can come out of this feeling a bit better about myself than I went into the show.
Yeah, it's a great choice. Book tests are always great ones for getting strong reactions. But that brings us to number 4. So what did you put in your 4th spot?
So number 4 is another book. It's another book that I've made myself, and it is my magic spell book. And so it's a magic coloring book, but I hate magic coloring books. If this was Magic Room 101 rather than Desert Island Tricks, I know somebody did bring dancing canes to the island to bury them all, but the magic coloring book is something which I despise with a passion. I think it's awful. I hate them so much. I don't like the way they look. I don't think that they are made very well. I've never seen a decent quality one of them. They are abysmal. But the method's fantastic. The method's brilliant. And the actual idea of it's fantastic and brilliant. The magic spell book is essentially a magic coloring book, but it's really high quality and really nice. So we start with an old-fashioned book of magic spells, and I say, look, it's got everything in this magic spell book, everything from abracadabra to zip zap zoo, a complete A to Z of magic for the modern witch or wizard. Shall we have a look inside? The kids say yes. And then we open it up and there's nothing in there. The kids obviously tell me this. They go, wow, then, oh gosh, there is nothing in there. Well, why didn't you tell me? Let's turn it around and you've got this zip zap zoo. Everybody on 3, they say zip zap zoo. I say, do you say zip zap poo? That's disgusting, don't say that. And when we open it up, it's got a smelly foot in it. It's got moldy cheese in it. It's got a bin bag. It's got a banana skin, a farting skunk, and a old piece of fish. I'm like, oh, wait, these aren't magic spells. These are magic smells. That's disgusting. Gosh, that's because of you, that is, with the zip zap poo. Then we do the magic again, and it fills up with magic spells. And on the last page, there's 6 magic wands, each one a different color. And I do a hot rod routine with the magic spells, with the magic wands. So they end up picking the bone wand. And on the back of the book, which I've shown at the beginning, is the bone wand. So that we can do a little bit of mentalism at the end. So I say, it's funny that you picked that one. The witch or wizard doesn't get to pick the wand picks the witch or wizard. And then when we turn the book around, it's got this wand on the back, which has been there the whole time. And I get parents say to me, they go, oh, does the wand come off? Because this is my opener for kids' parties. When I do a kids' party, this is like the I have to ask about magic words, and I have to have a magic wand. So before I get into my magic wand, I do magic words and get this spell book out. And it's sort of quite casual in a way. Like, does anybody know any magic? I've got my book of magic words here. And it's just brilliant. I love it so much. The kids go absolutely wild for it. And it's so much better than a magic coloring book. It just feels so real. It's got loads of jokes built into it. So in the magic smells, the first thing is smelly feet. I go, well, my car's broken down. I had to walk here. Of course I've got smelly feet because I haven't noticed the foot yet. And then I go, and then I turn the page to the next page and it's a piece of moldy cheese. The kids go, oh, it's cheese, stinky cheese. And I go, stop talking about my feet. Look, I know they smell like moldy cheese. They smell like stinky cheese. I know that. That's because I had to walk here today. We've been through this. And sort of a recurring joke through the show is that my car broke down, even though my car's on their driveway, is that my car's broken down and I had to walk there. There's various gags throughout the show about my car on the way to work not being quite as it should be. I'd love to get a clown car and have a car that falls apart, but I don't have the budget.
I like that you've put an additional effect in there. I think that's really smart. So having that selection, the one selection at the end, is a really nice idea.
Yeah, it's really good. And what you get as well, because some kids know how the magic coloring book works. If they're sort of 12 years old and it's a 6-year-old birthday party, you've got this kid in the back that doesn't want to be there, it's the big brother, so, like that. Then at the end, I go, oh, you, point at this kid. Oh, you with the face on. Like, can you pick a number between 1 and 6 for me? Oh, you pick a number between any number between 1 and 6. You're going to pick a magic wand. I've got the book closed at this point. And then I flip it back open and go, right, that. And people think that I've messed about with the pages or something like that. But then the parents film the shows a lot of the time. So when they watch it back, they're going to be like, it just doesn't make sense. And because it's a spell book, if they pick one of the wrong numbers, if they don't pick 3 or 4 and we have to spell it instead, I go, well, this is a book of magic spells, so we're going to spell your number, which makes sense. That's the problem I've always had with the hot rod is spelling something which is a number, where it happens so rarely because people pick 3 or 4. But spelling the number is something which always gave me the ick a bit. So instead, I've got a book of spells. We're going to spell it, it just makes sense in a weird way.
Yeah, it sounds like a great routine and leads us very nicely into number 5. So what did you put in your 5th spot?
So my 5th spot has got an honourable mention first. My 5th, the honourable mention is Ring and Gumball Machine. I did this for a while. I've still got the Gumball Machine. I nearly sold it and then, I don't really want to sell it. It's such a big, bulky thing to carry around with you. But a ring to an impossible object is brilliant. A ring to a very locked object is great as well. And the gumball machine, the fact that I gave kids 20p's. This was the prize machine. So if they came up to help me, because you can load it at any point. So you can give the kids 20p throughout the show and they can win actual gumballs with something inside of it. But I'd make the ring disappear quite near the start of the show. And at the end of the show, the ring would be in the gumball machine. And I'd say, oh, well, it's gone. But here's 20p. You can either keep the 20p or put it in the gumball machine to the parents. And the parents would go, I'll put it in the gumball machine. What do you think they should do? And everyone says gumball machine. And then they come out and there's the ring in there. And it's a great routine. It's fantastic and really, really fooling. And people, it's bonkers. But there's some problems with it. There's two problems with it. One, you've got to carry a gumball machine around with you, which is odd. Two, a gumball machine at a place where there could be a kids' party going on and there's parents and kids. If it's on your stage, it's great, but it's very much a prop. You know that prop is a prop. If it's, which I didn't do, I would put it somewhere inconspicuous to go, there's a gumball machine in here. Or at least I tried to do that as much as possible. The problem with that is that kids would then ask their parents for money to put in the gumball machine, and so they can have a gumball, which is problematic. So I replaced it by Get Smarty by Mark Bennett. And I didn't know how I felt about it originally, but it's brilliant. I love it so much, and I think it's better than the Ring and Gumball machine. I think the fact that you can, because I have lots of, as many kids entertainers do and family entertainers do, lots of problems with magic wands, and lots of things become magic wands. And so the idea of handing a kid a magic wand and getting them, because they're holding the ring in the handkerchief and it's been taken from their adult, you're going to do something amazing with it. You're going to make it even more valuable. We're going to clean it. It's going to be great. A bit like the shoe burner routine where you burn a shoe. We're going to give it a tap with the magic wand. And when you give it a tap with the magic wand, it's going to be the sparkliest ring on the planet. It's going to be incredible. But it's going to disappear. So they tap with the magic wand. It's not gone. Another magic wand is not gone. Let me see what else I've got in here. We could use a magic wand. There's some Smarties. So they're holding the Smarties in this hand and they're holding the ring in this hand and they tap it and it doesn't disappear. Which point I go, oh, for goodness sake, we'll not use the magic words. Zip, zap, and pull the thing away from them. But they're holding the Smarties. So the timing of it is the ring is in their hand whilst they're holding where the ring is going to end up. And then it disappears. And then I go, what about in the Smarties tube? Is that where it is? Which is sealed. Have you seen this? It's brilliant. The Smarties packets are sealed from the top. So then they have to unseal the Smarties packet. Then I say, what's inside? And they go, Smarties. Because the whole of the top of it is filled with Smarties. And right at the very bottom, amongst the Smarties, is the ring, and they can eat the Smarties. You're giving away Smarties to kids, and adults are like, what? This is amazing. Like, people just can't believe it. And I think it's better than Gumball Machine, and a damn sight easier to carry around with you. I know that Mark has also got coming out, which is super exciting, a larger version of this, but I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it. So but he rang me up the other day and said, as a kids entertainer, what would you do with this? And showed me this sort of newer version of it. And I went, oh. And I came up with an idea and went, I've not had Blackpool this year. I was like, can you put one to one side for me? Because I would really, really like that. It's just better. For me, it's better. And I think it's just going to blow people's minds even more.
Yeah, Get Smarty is great. And what's really cool about Get Smarty is it's seconds to set up. There is no arts and crafts needed. There's no gluing of anything because of the system that's in place. It's a really clever way to accomplish that routine. And it's great for close-up and parlor or stand-up pieces as well. You can do it in both
close
settings.
up as well. again, the magic happens in their hands. It's almost as good as sponge balls, I would say, in that respect, is that you can, again, I've not quite worked out how I would get it to, although I could probably do a very similar routine with adults. Adults, especially if they've had a few drinks, adults are just big kids, especially when there's magic involved. So having a magic wand and it's not working, tap, tap, and all this kind of stuff like that, having somebody else holding the ring that is belonging to somebody else, you're going to make it disappear. Oh, you didn't do it. And then what about this wand? Oh, goodness sake. What about this? Oh, this isn't the wand. Give it a tap anyway. And then taking it off of them. That's the time delay on it is just so beautiful. The idea of somebody holding something which is going to disappear and be in their other hand. It's almost like, when people go, oh, and it's now inside your pocket. And then they look in their pocket and you go, I can't do that. That would be good. If I could do that, I'd be in Vegas. You can do that. It's now in your other hand. You've made it disappear from this hand, in their hand, to that hand, to the thing they're already holding. Beautiful. Love it.
Hello guys, I'm here to talk to you about Alakazam Unlimited. This is the best streaming platform in the world, I'm telling you now. With Alakazam Unlimited, you get access to over 150 magic routines. This is video performances and explanations. We have card magic, coin magic, kids magic, rope magic, mentalism, stage, parlor, impromptu. We've got you covered. All of this for the low price of just £4.99 a month, and you can cancel at any time. Perfect if you've got commitment issues. Yes, I'm talking to you. Guys, you are going to absolutely love it. If you haven't joined the platform already, what the heck are you doing? Alakazam Unlimited is a streaming platform that you need to be a part of. Not only that, there is also exclusive content only available on the platform. Check it out now, alakazam.co.uk. Cheers.
Yep, an excellent choice, and leads us nicely into number 6. So what did you put in your 6th spot?
So number 6 is a deck of cards. But it's not any deck of cards, it is Knife Flights. I don't use any other cards anymore. I just use Knife Flights, which is problematic in a way because all the gimmicks are made for bikes. But Knife Flights are just too good. They're beautiful deck of cards. They've got loads of stuff built into them. Sometimes I do a magic square if I've got older audiences, or if I've got, sometimes I go into schools and do shows and they say, oh, can you do anything educational in the show? And I go, oh, I can do a maths trick. And it's got a brilliant magic square sort of index on it. So I don't need to look at anything. Or I need to look at that, but I've sort of got it up here as well, but I can sort of go back. It's like a crib in it. It's just such a great deck of cards. And I know what you're going to do next.
Yep. So devil's advocate, if you could only do one routine, would you do that magic square or would you do something different?
Different. Yeah. The reason I've got that deck of cards is really to do Triumph. I think it is the best magic trick you can do with a deck of cards. A lot of card magic leaves me stone cold. I love card magic as well, but I can get really, really fatigued by it, I guess is the right word. I can not sit for hours and watch somebody playing with a deck of cards. But I think that the best magic trick that I can do, it was between, I've got Chicago Open / Triumph here. I think Triumph is better. I think that the ending of Triumph is so shocking. They know what's going to happen. When I do it so that the cards get shuffled, then they go back to front, so they're all messed up. And then I do it face down so that they're face down apart from their card, which is face up. And I say, but the cards have unshuffled themselves, flip the cards over. Also, I get to do that thing. It looks like I'm really good with cards, which I'm not, but I get to do that thing where you sort of do the little wave over the little Mexican wave thing over the cards. And when I flip them all over, they've all sorted themselves into black and red. And it's just such a shocking ending. You've got it's a rule of 3, and it works in all styles of entertainment. It works in comedy, it works in everything. But in magic, it's something that doesn't get talked about enough. If you've got 3 boom, boom, booms, then that last one is like, oh my God, he's done something else. So the first thing that is incredible is that all the cards are the right way up. The second thing that's incredible is that one card is the wrong way up, and is their card. And they go, oh, wow, that's amazing. And you go, no, that's not amazing. This is amazing. And flip them over, and they're all sorted into red and black.
Do you have a preferred version?
Yes. I don't know who did it, though. I don't know who the original person is for it. I got shown it. I used to work for Marvin's Magic, and lots of magicians did. I got shown it by a magician called Glenn Spiro. He showed me this version. I went, brilliant, fantastic. I guess it's called a sloppy shuffle, where you're back to front and front. So you're doing that, which doesn't work great in an audio format. But you're taking the cards, you're taking some of them and placing them the right way around, some the wrong way around. It's more beautiful doing it the other way, but it's easier doing it this way. And do you know what? I'm not there to show how talented I am at finger flicking. I'm there to entertain them, and I can just concentrate completely on all the delivery. And it's something which I do at a close up. I wouldn't do it on stage, but it's something which, again, it just makes people go, wow, this is incredible. Makes me look good. Makes me look better than I am.
It is a phenomenal trick. Yeah, it's such a crowd pleaser. But it does lead us to your last two. So your last of your 8. So what did you put in your 7th spot?
I found this really, really hard as I got towards the end. So I have got Alchemy, which is by Ronnie Shackney. And it's exclusive to Merlins of Wakefield. And it is, I guess it's a bizarre piece. The thing is, it's a really feel-good bizarre piece. So what it is it's a beautiful, beautiful wooden box. And I open it up, and there's a skull inside with a drilled hole in it, which you put a candle in. And then you've got 2 pots, one which has got sands of the deserts in it, one which has got the salt from the sea. We've got fire, so we've got the earth, we've got this, and we've got wind as well, which then you've got these scrolls. So I don't do the original routine for it as it's written, but I do this as the last trick in my kids' birthday parties. And it sounds like when I bought it, I was in Merlin's, and they said, "You want that?" And I was like, "Yes, I want this. Yeah, this is really good." They were like, "Yeah, it's really good, but you're not going to use it in a kids' party." I went, "No, of course I am. This is incredible." I talk about magic, and I talk about, for many, many years, people didn't believe that magic was real. People just believed in sorcerers and conjurers and all this sort of thing like that, and it being a mythical thing. I said, but there were people who tried to do real magic, combining science and magic together to make things. So making lead into gold, which is ridiculous. You can't do that, because lead is one thing and gold is something else. But I got given this by a very old magician, and with the right music playing in the background and everything, and the story, it becomes really enchanting. And I almost whisper it. And I take the child, and you've got a little pot, and they pour a little bit of the sand in. I say, this represents the earth. You need the elements to make magic happen. So we've got fire, you've got the earth, then we've got the sea. Now, we're not going to put any water in here, but I've got salt from the sea, which represents the water. So they put the salt in, they put the sand in, then I say, okay, now the last thing is we need is wind. I said, but before I'm going to use my breath as wind, but before I do that, we need fire. And I take the scroll which the instructions are written on, and I put it into the pot as well. And then I take the whole thing and I place it over the top of the candle, and it goes up. And I blow it out and put my hand over the top, and I say, and have a little look inside there. And inside there is a chunk, a little nugget of pyrites, which is fool's gold. I pour it into the child's hand, and I say, that's for you. That's for you. That's something special. You've made that. And they go, what, can I keep it? Like kids are like, what, you've actually made gold? Because I think with magic, people say we should always do magic with money, and flash money routines like extreme burn are great. But people go, if you're a magician, you'd actually make the money. Yeah. But if you're a magician, you'd be able to give it away as well, because you could just make more. Because it's pyrites, because it's super cheap, and because it looks like real gold, and you get a big chunk of it, you just bash it with a hammer a few times and you get these little bits coming off. You can give a child a piece of gold and you can go, treasure, this is treasure. You can treasure this for the rest of your life. Every time you look at this, remember you made this using magic. And I give it to them and they keep it. And I only got this last year, and it's just become something which other kids are coming up to me going, can you make me some gold? And I go, yes, I can. Get your parents to book me for your birthday party. It's something which it's become a reputation maker. And in the shop, they turn around and went, you're never going to use this. And I did look at it for a moment and go, well, it's a collector's piece and that kind of stuff like that. Maybe I won't use it. But in my head, the moment that I saw it, with like Lord of the Ringsy sort of style music behind it and being really quiet on a microphone is something that lots of children's entertainers need to learn. Being quiet is more impressive than being loud. And it's just something which is enchanting and it's real magic. And then you give it to them. And I don't know what those kids do with it, but I know if I got given that as a child, I'd still have it now. I know Wayne Goodman talked about the coin that, and at the wedding, the guy with the coin, because it was his good luck charm. And I just go, wow, the impact that you can have on people's lives. This is important. I also make teddy bears for little teeny tiny children, which is a lot of fun, but it's not as magical as alchemy, which is, I think, is just phenomenal.
Well, that's certainly your curveball item. I think out of everything that we could have predicted that you were going to say, skulls was not in there. But that's great. Yeah, anyone who looks at the actual prop as well, it's such a beautiful prop, and the way that they've collated everything and made everything, it's such a lovely piece of magic. And I love that you sort of made it something that people can reflect on a little bit more, and it maybe has a bit more emotion and thought behind it than the bizarre side of things. So yeah, I think that's absolutely brilliant. But you've built up a lot for your last item now, because that was a big curveball item. So what did you put in your 8th spot?
Okay, so I'm on a desert island, and it's only all these things so far are great if there's an audience, right? But the last thing is for me. It's something that I've been working on for about 3 years, and it's not finished yet. And I and ahed about this, but I know that a few other people put things in that they've been working on and stuff like that. So it's called The Game. That's sort of its work in progress name. And the idea is that it's a board game, and it's sort of Dungeons and Dragons-y. And in the center of the board game, there is a box, and you take a ring from yourself. And if I'm playing with you, Jamie, you put your ring in there as well. We both lock that box with a padlock, and that goes in the center. And then, as a game should be, there's the little not plexiglass, but what are the plasticky, transparent plastic bags. In there's 12 keys. There's 12 islands in a circle around the game. And then there's 4 big islands in the corner. So you pick what character you want to be. You could be the thief, the magician. Actually, I'll tell you what, we've got the thief, the magician, the hero, and the explorer. So you're going to be the hero of this story. I'm going to be the magician because that's what I am. So we both get a card. I've got the magician, you've got the hero. And because I'm the magician, I'm going to make the game enchanted so that you only need to roll the dice once to win. But before that, we need to put the keys on the island, because each island is going to have a key on it. So I then give you the keys from the bag, you place them on the islands, and then I ask you to roll the dice, D20s, and you go around the board, and you pick up an action card. Each key is protected by something, and they're the action cards that protect them. So you have to roll the dice, or they give you instructions of what to do next. You pick up an action card. The cards have been shuffled by you and cut by me. And then when you turn over the action card, it tells you what to do, which is go back the number thrown. You go back around the board to whatever island, and you pick up that key. And before you use that key in the lock, I say, well, try some of the other keys in the lock first. I enchanted the game, so you should have the winning key. You should only have to use one move. So you place the key down, use the other keys in the lock. None of them open the lock. The last key opens the lock, and you open up the chest. But when you open up the chest, there's nothing inside. My magician card has turned into the thief card, and I have got both the rings.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds really cool. What a lovely twist ending for that as well.
And it's one of those things that I sort of posted about it on social media the other day. I've been working on this for a long time. People going, oh, yeah, I'll buy one of them. And I'm like, I don't know if it's for sale. But also, I'm like, people sometimes say they're going to buy things. But I was like, I can't see a home. Also, if you don't do one thing at the beginning of the whole thing, then you can play it as a game. There's a couple of other cards that I'm including which make it actually into a game. So you don't have to have it as a magic trick. But I can't imagine just whipping out a board game and going, let me show you this at a gig. So I guess it's just for me, really. If other people do want them, then it's cheaper to make 10 than it is to make one, usually. But I guess it's the sort of thing that I imagine having a home and taking it out when people are around and going, can I show you this? It's this, and I'm going to age it. That's the other thing. I need your advice and other people's advice on this. How do you make something brand new look old, especially if it's a board game? It's somewhere between Jumanji and Dungeons and Dragons, but I want it to be ancient. This game that I've acquired, but you can play it as well. I think that's great.
Yeah, it sounds really, really cool. And like lots of people say, it's about the right trick for the right time and the right environment. So, like you say, having that on your shelf at home or taking it down to the pub with your mates and having it in a bag and someone saying, what's that? You're like, oh, it's this new game that I've picked up. Yeah, I think it sounds really, really cool. But it does bring us to your two curveball items. So we got the book and the item. Now, obviously, we've given you 8 choices. You've only actually given us 1 honourable mention as well. So it's going to be interesting to see where you went. You've already mentioned Mark Wilson's Complete Course in Magic. So we're not sure if maybe we might see that, maybe we won't. What did you put in your book position?
So I've got loads of honourable mentions. So obviously Mark Wilson's Complete Course in Magic is an honourable mention. The other honourable mentions have been said before on here, and they are brilliant, but they're not the book. So Darren Brown's Notes from a Fellow Traveller is worth. When I went and met Darren, I told him absolute inspiration. He said, "Oh, are you a mentalist?" I said, "No, I'm a children's entertainer." And he went, "Oh." He's like, how am I an inspiration to you? I was like, the story and the arc of the shows, I was like, it's just so beautiful. I was like, I wouldn't be a magician if it wasn't for Darren Brown. The third honourable mention for my book is Adam Bloom's Comic Genius book, Find Your Comic Genius. Every performer in general should have that book. Whether you're a singer or whether you're a magician or whether you're a comedian, because there's bits where you have to compare things. My fourth honourable mention for books is a weird one, and it was almost very close to being the book I would take with me, and it is the Davenport's Magic Catalogue. So when I was growing up, I got a Davenport's Magic Catalogue, and I couldn't afford anything. I didn't have the money to buy any magic tricks. And so I went through this, and you had the black and white pictures of a cartoon sort of picture of something, and you had the description next to it of what it did. No methods. Brilliant. I love no methods. I love making my own methods for things, whether they be right or wrong. And it's something which just inspired me all the time. And I would circle this book, and I'd have loads and loads of circles and bookmarks in places and post-it notes sticking out of here, there, and everywhere, and didn't own any of it. But when that's something I'd like to be able to do. How can I do that at home? But the book that I'm taking with me isn't a magic book, has nothing to do with magic, and isn't a book on how to be a better performer. The book I'm taking with me is Yes Man by Danny Wallace, which I recently rediscovered when I was talking to my son. I was like, you need to say yes more. I was like, oh. So Yes Man by Danny Wallace is a true story written by Danny Wallace about a man who stops doing things, basically. He doesn't go to parties. He goes, oh, I'm too busy. I can't do that. He won't go out. He doesn't go for this, doesn't do the other thing. And then one day on a bus, an old man says to him, say yes more. Just out of the blue. A drunk old guy says, say yes more. So he decides for a year, he's going to say yes to everything, every single thing. He gives himself some very, very basic rules. But he says yes to everything, and it opens so many doors. And I read this book when I was about 15 years old, and I would say, and it sounds a bit cheesy, but I'd say it changed my life. It gave me a really interesting outlook on life, and I believe in it. I genuinely believe that if you say yes to things, then you have a brilliant time, and saying no to things just quashes any opportunity. It just opens so many doors, saying yes to stuff. And I would recommend every human to read this book. It's brilliant. The person that I would say, like in real life, because I don't know Danny Wallace, but do you know Russ Brown in Blackpool? So his lecture a few years ago at Kidology, he talked about, he said yes to a cruise ship. He needed 14 UV puppet shows of cruise ships. And they said, have you got that? And he said, oh, yes. And he didn't. But he went, well, I've now got 3 months to find 14 UV puppet shows that I can put into the, and write the show, make the show, and put them on the ships. And so he did. That's the thing. If you say yes to the thing, you still have to be able to do it. You can't just say yes and then not be able to do the thing. Then you still have to be really reliable, and it's important. And there's been times where, like, I've done like 6 gigs in a day because I've said yes. And I am now reluctantly getting older and realize that maybe I don't have the stamina quite for that as much as I used to. It's certainly something which I still keep in my mind as much as physically possible, to say yes to things. And it's taken me all over the world saying yes. It's important.
Well, that's a great choice, and it leads us on to your final choice, which is your item. So what did you put in your item spot?
So it was almost a Bluetooth button for music, but I decided against that. You can see behind me, and listeners can't. I had to have my cheese monster. My cheese monster is my puppet, and I can't imagine doing a show without the cheese monster, or some sort of puppet or ventriloquism in some way. As an allied art, I mean, I would argue that ventriloquism is magic, because you are making an inanimate object something which is entirely believable, and audiences, for it to be funny, they have to believe that the thing that you're talking to is separate to you. It's something which I just genuinely believe is as good as any magic trick and better than most. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. For me, it's the cheese monster, but it could be any puppet at all. It's just something which is so in my life. But yeah, the cheese monster for me is this bright yellow puppet. It's very cheeky, and it's got a very high-pitched nasal voice. Oh, hello, how are you? And it's just so much fun to do and such a joy. Children love it, adults love it. If people don't like puppets, then I'm very wary of those people. If people don't like puppets in some way, I'm like, what's wrong with you? The Muppets being the most prime example of that. If you don't like the Muppets, then you are joyless, and I do not want to know you. Everybody should like that. So yeah, for me, it's the cheese monster is my final other item. Also, if I'm on a desert island on my own, at least I've got somebody to talk to.
Yeah, that's a great choice. I thought when we were first putting this podcast together, we'd have more puppets. I did think it was one of those items that more people would take with them in some way. I thought we'd have more Rocky Raccoons, certainly, going to the island.
There was another, actually, an honourable mention. There was almost another puppet in my tricks, which was a Svensson's flea circus, but it didn't quite get in there against the magic. I did have this beautiful flea circus. I ended up selling it because it's really hard to market a flea circus, but it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of apparatus, and it's a fantastic, I guess, puppet. It's a puppet, yeah? It's sort of a puppet?
Yeah, well, that's a great list. We've gone from sponge balls, unicorns, and eyeballs to the pom-pom stick, the Wizard of Oz book test. We've got the magic spell book, Get Smarty. We've got a deck of cards, particularly the Night Flights. We've got Alchemy, the game. Your book was Yes Man by Danny Wallace, and your item was your cheese monster puppet. Now, if that is not an eclectic list of tricks, I do not know what is. Now, Chris, if anyone wants to find out more about you, where can they go?
So you can go to my website, www.frostie, with an I and an E, entertainment.co.uk, or you can find me on social media at Frostie Entertainment, or on Facebook, Chris Frostie Frost. If you're looking for a lecturer, then yes, I do a lecture. I travel anywhere for that, and I love lecturing. It's something I genuinely believe 100% in being better. I love going to lectures and seeing lectures that have got nothing to do with what I do. Generally, I find that very inspiring for what I do, and I love lecturing because I believe that we should be trying to better ourselves and make those audiences win. Our job's to make memories. And if we can make those memories the best possible thing for those people that are watching us, then we should be taking in every little bit of information that we can. There's no such thing as a bad lecture, I find, because there's always a little bit of gold somewhere to find. But yeah, if you want me for a lecture, then yeah, drop me a line. Or if you want me for a kids' party or a show, drop me a line as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Chris. And of course, like always, if you guys want to be part of our other podcast, which is Stranded with a Stranger, make sure you send in your list of 8 tricks, 1 book and 1 non-magic item to sales@alakazam.co.uk. Please include a short bio and, of course, the reason that you chose those tricks. So stay tuned. Of course, we'll be back next week with a Desert Island Tricks and a Stranded with a Stranger. But for now, have a great week. Bye-bye.
Hi, Peter Nardi here, and I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. I just wanted to let you know that Alakazam have their own app. You can download it from the App Store or the Google Play Store. By downloading the app, it will make your shopping experience even slicker at Alakazam. You'll also get exclusive in-app offers and in-app live streams. So go download it now, and we'll see you on the next podcast.